And hey, George, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Jeff?
I am doing well. Well, thank you for joining me on Indispensable Appraisers podcast, especially on a Friday. So thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yep. First question up. What is the valuation industry doing a good job at? What are we winning at?
Yeah, overall, I would say, and this is what I always tell people in terms of the benefits of the appraisal industry is, it's a great place to learn. I mean, it's not a great place. In my opinion, it's the best place to learn. There's a lot of training that you can get when you become an appraiser versus if you start in other lines of business. There's not necessarily great training. And then in terms of what we're winning at also, and this is, the non-business side of it, but the peer group. I mean, I think that appraisers, we're winning in the sense that uh, the values that appraisers tend to hold, good appraisers, are the values that I personally hold. And if you're able to work alongside a peer group of people who can potentially be friends, I think that's an enormous win in life. So a wonderful peer group overall. In terms of like where we're winning in terms of work today, obviously right now the lending environment is way down. So there's a lot of pain in the markets as it relates to individual fee appraisers. But the ones that are continuing to, win work today is the non-lender work. Many of those people are really not even feeling any kind of downturn whatsoever. So, that could be expert testimony work, which could include property tax appeals, litigation, arbitration assignments, government agency work. Um, yeah, I think that there's a lot of demand there too, for people who can help solve client problems. But yeah, I think there's overall in the industry that's sort of where the wins are.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Next question up is, what do you think are the valuation industry's biggest challenges are?
The biggest challenges, I don't think it's a big secret where the biggest challenges are. I mean, you kind of hear this over and over, but fee compression, I mean, that is a big issue. And, it's something I've thought a lot about from the mentors and people I've spoken with. I mean, fees have effectively remained flat, and in many instances, they've gone down over the past 10, 20, and maybe even 30 years. And that in and of itself, if the technology were adopting fast enough, might not be an issue if the effective dollars to the appraiser were, keeping up with inflation. But the reality is, I'm quite sure that that's not happening. Um, and so, you know, people will, this market will be efficient, and there'll be supply and demand, and if the fees aren't low enough, then that means that certain people are going to leave, and that's okay. The market kind of does what it's supposed to do. The issue, though, is, in my opinion, it's just to give you a little bit of background on my story. I used to work for a large national firm, and myself and a partner started with one assistant, and we eventually grew that team to a total of 15 people. So we had a lot of experience with attracting and retaining talent, because one of the first problems that we had identified was the young people who were coming into the firm and joining teams, they weren't really staying on the teams. And it was very easy to see why, because when that fee compression or the fees remain flat, generally the people at the top, will just effectively extract a little bit more and a little bit more, and it really leaves very little opportunity for the younger people to actually develop a career within appraisal. And for my partner and I, we have felt very grateful about the profession that we've been able to call, appraisal, or our careers. And we really wanted to at least provide the same type of opportunities to the next generation. that we were the beneficiaries of. So we looked at how people were getting paid, and we understood very early that if we wanted to grow the team, that we were going to have to find ways to pay, your young people more money. And when I started, basically, you started for, just, I mean, ridiculously low start, and the hope was, you eventually get on a split and you'll actually earn a livable wage, and your income's going to go up by triple. But you're coming in for, we would come in for like almost surely like below minimum wage or something like that. But the offer was always that we would get an education, we would get training, and for those of people who wanted exposure into commercial real estate, you would learn the valuation, the nuts and bolts of commercial real estate. So for me personally, I came into the industry kind of hoping to pivot into a finance job, but get exposure to commercial real estate because that's what I lacked at the time. And for various reasons, I kind of kept getting further and further into the valuation profession, and I found it to be, very rewarding. And so, I stayed in it, and it's provided me, a good career. It's been a really good job. It's been very rewarding. And so, my partner and I, we shared this philosophy that we wanted to keep that tradition going, even though we could see that it wasn't working for basically most of our peer group, which is to say that, they would just continue to turn over their assistants sort of every year, or, maybe every other year or something like that. And this was systematic. I mean, this wasn't just, one or two teams. It was across the, as far as we could see. And, it's not hard to see why, because, if another line of business is going to be able to pay more, especially in the short term, then that's where the talent would gravitate to. And I think that one of the challenges is, I mean, and this is one of the ideas that we kind of push back against, is that if somebody is too qualified to start an appraisal, people would overlook that candidate. And my partner and I, we didn't believe that. We thought, hey, if you're smart, you want to learn. Like, we asked ourselves, what is it that we wanted to? Why did we come into the industry? Because we also had opportunities to go down, different lines of business. But ultimately, for myself and my partner, it was really the opportunity to learn, which is what brought us into the industry. So when we went to recruit people, even though they were coming from some of the best universities or had, some of the best backgrounds, that was the messaging that we always explained to them, that, hey, you're going to come in here and you're going to learn, and we're going to teach. And at heart, both my partner and I are teachers. So for a time being there, as the market was running up, we were able to retain a lot of our assistants. And I'm really kind of proud of the fact that during that span, 7-8 years, we were able to set, I think it was seven of our assistants ended up getting their certified general license during that period. And this is against, just to give you some context, when we had looked at the statistics in California, people who were 30 and under, there was only 40 in the whole state. And so,
Wow.
having 7 or 8 of those in that period, is something that we were really, we're really proud of the fact that we were able to do that. But we understand all the challenges that are associated with that as well. And it's not easy. And then now, with the downturn, it's even more difficult to kind of make the dollars make sense. So I think that's a big challenge. I mean, and it's not hard to see that when the lending work comes back in, whenever it is, nobody has a crystal ball, but 6, 12, 18 months down the line, there is gonna, potentially be a shortage of appraisers. And it's not just having bodies in there, right? It's the people who get trained by the people who had great training, or people who have the knowledge. And that's one of the challenges also with the industry, is that appraisal, as far as I can tell, it's one of the most highly training intensive professions that one can get into. certainly more than some of the other industries I've looked into. And so, even if somebody has 3, 4, 5 years of experience, there's still a lot of training to do. So, I mean, that's another challenge that I think everybody is facing. Um, and ultimately, it's the economics that we have to solve if we want to continue to bring more people into the industry, which for a lot of the people, young people that have stayed in the industry, a lot of them, they really do enjoy the work, just like, just like I have a passion for the work. They do also, but if they're going to have trouble paying their bills, then that's going to be a challenge for everybody involved, in my opinion, and beyond the appraisers themselves.
Sure. Great. Thanks for that. And that leads into the third question is, where do we go from here? How do we fix some of the, you mentioned the economics of it. So if you were king, how would you change the future, influence of the future, or suggestions, whether it's in the short term, long term? What would you see going forward of trying to improve those challenges that you highlighted?
Yeah, I've heard you say you know the the quote, or I've heard you say in the past that it's your opinion that the appraisers are the smartest person in the room. And when we trained our appraisers, we've always explained to them that um, by the time they get done with that assignment, they should understand the valuation better than anybody else involved. Which is, we're kind of saying the same thing. I mean, that is ultimately the goal that we want every appraiser to get to. And sometimes it takes some time, but given a certain amount of reps, that should be the case. And then you continue to build on that as you progress through your career. Um, Appraisers tend to be very good technicians, if not great technicians. And, as a peer group, that's what I respect the most. When I have a peer that I can get off the phone with, or, talk with, and they can teach me things, those are the people that I respect the most within our industry. And I personally think that is also extremely valuable. Um, One of the things that I think we can improve as a whole is just better branding and better marketing. I think that appraisers, again, are great technicians, but I think that many of them aren't particularly good business people, because the time associated with a particular job, people are quite always at, oh, can you lower the fee? And it's basically, can you keep lowering the fee? And because people would do that, you know, it kind of creates a negative, it kind of hurts the whole industry, in my opinion. Um, because if people understood how long it took, or the diligence that we had to do, then I think that, I don't think most people would do a lot of the things that we do for the fees that we do. But beyond that, I think, let's say with the MAI or the Appraisal Institute, how much time it takes to actually go through that process, and how much more you have to learn in order to do that. I don't think that the people have a really great understanding of, what appraisers have to do. I mean, I think a lot of non-appraisers are interested in appraisers when they need something, some data, some color on a market, a sub-market, data points. But I think, if we look at the other lines of business, they do a better job at not just marketing themselves and their services, but also presenting, the value that they bring. I mean, a lot of brokers, for example, a lot of their value comes from demonstrating the value that they can bring to a transaction or to a client. And that's not a skill set that I see is well developed by the industry as a whole, which is, part of why I'm sort of excited about the Appraisal Institute, and maybe a better push or better branding at the top. I think it has to happen. Otherwise, I think it's negative for everybody.
Great, great. Anything else we didn't cover you'd like to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, if there's anything you'd like me to speak on, I'm happy to do so. But
Let me ask you this, since you mentioned if there's a lot of technicians and the economics and fee compression, And if there's a transition, if there was a transition to more entrepreneurial, business-focused appraisers, do you think that would resolve the fee issue to where it's a little bit less, they have the passion for the work, certainly, but maybe the more business-oriented person may not bid so low, right? You want to be the Walmart of appraising and the fees just go down. Do you think the industry can transition from technician to business entrepreneur person that still has a technician expertise? Could that be the trigger? Could that be the lever that does allow the fee compression to maybe improve where you can then get the talent that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know that this isn't necessarily specific to appraisers per se. I think that a lot of industries have a similar issue, like doctors want to practice medicine. They don't necessarily want to be the best business person in the room. And same thing with engineers and accountants and, probably attorneys. And, I think that there are other industries that face similar challenges. And that's why I bring up the value of the Appraisal Institute, because it is one potential organization that can help with, our marketing and our branding. I don't know about the individual transition, because some people are just going to be, I think that it's really technician oriented, or maybe a little bit more marketing oriented. I think that ultimately it's going to have to happen um, through a third party, like the Appraisal Institute, or services that are provided to appraisers that can help them. It's not even something that they have to sell. It's just something that people have to, that information, that knowledge just has to come to light. And I mean, I've met so many smart appraisers from so many different markets, and getting to know them and having them explain things about their market. It's just an awesome experience. But how often does somebody get that kind of exposure, or know that that person has that much knowledge in their head? uh, I think that's extremely valuable. But how does somebody reveal that to the world? And I think, for me, I've been more active on social media with respect to LinkedIn. That's been part of my solution to try to, kind of stay in front of our clients on a scaled basis. But I think I was just like many other appraisers, which is to say that, that wasn't really something I ever focused on within my career, because I was always attracted to the knowledge, and I was also I'm attracted to the learning. So for me, it's been a big learning curve to understand sort of more the business aspect of appraisal. But I think anybody and everybody would benefit from that type of exposure. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's something that everybody wants to do, or everybody can do. Um, so
Okay, great. And I do agree, and I think that's where we met on LinkedIn, where you're doing some social posts. And I do think part of the issue is appraisers are kind of in the shadows and coming back out of the shadows. You mentioned the Appraisal Institute. Really appreciate, and I think that's where we probably met on a chat with Cindy Chance, the new CEO of the Appraisal Institute. And I like what I'm seeing as she's posting, right? Very optimistic, encouraging. How do we reposition this industry? And I'm super excited at looking forward with an optimistic lens, especially if somebody's not in our industry, they can give a fresh look. And people that are becoming more vocal, kind of getting back out saying, hey, we are still here. We still have a passion for the industry. So I really appreciate what Cindy's doing. I appreciate you coming on here and taking your time. And this is, I think, the start of just the conversation, and for us to get back to the narrative of, hey, we're still here. You're the smartest person in the room when it comes to real estate, and we're still here and we want to make it better.
yeah, no, I agree.
Great. Well, George, I appreciate your time today.
No, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, bye.